So, welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. We have arrived at the fifth and final working session of our Congress. Before I introduce this session and the panel, can I ask if Adam Levy is in the room from ADB Safegate? Adam Levy, not in the room. Anybody knows Adam Levy? Okay, apparently he's a lucky guy who won a television in one of the competitions in the... So, okay, we'll figure out where he is another time. Does anybody need a television? Maybe we can fix something. We'll give him another 10 minutes, okay? Okay, so let me introduce the fifth working session. It's Sustainable Tourism with a very good subtitle, In the Era of Partnerships, which indeed is a truly fitting conclusion to our overall theme of airports and the sustainability challenge. To lead this session, it gives me great pleasure to introduce the moderator, our very own Maria Gurubi, Senior Manager, Aviation Development, Marketing and Communication at Hermes Airports. So Maria, the whole stage is yours.
Thank you, Philippos. And good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. So we have indeed reached the last session of the Congress, and the discussion on sustainable tourism seems like a suitable way to conclude, or rather to initiate our journey towards a successful and sustainable future. So before I introduce the distinguished members of the panel, I'd like to share with you some thoughts, some facts, sort of to set the stage for our discussion. So global tourism numbers in 2018 reached 1.4 billion people. And according to the World Tourism Organization, by 2030, the number will increase to 1.8 billion people. And of course, there are many factors for this. It's the growing middle class, global middle class, the millennials, the cheaper airfares, the ambitious tourism targets set by various governments, but also the so-called fear of missing out, which is fueled by the social media, and the need of people to tick off a place from their bucket list. But growth comes with its toll. Hand in hand with aviation challenges, as we all know them, tourism is also vulnerable to economic conditions, instability, geopolitical, rising costs of air travel, but also destinations are threatened by climate change impacts, extreme weather conditions, water scarcity, biodiversity loss, diseases, and growing poverty and inequality. And these definitely make it clear that business as usual would be extremely difficult in the future. But potentially, can there be some good news? Evidence suggests that by taking a sustainable approach, the industry can actually get the opportunity and dynamism that it merits. Sustainability doesn't need to be costly or complicated. It can be about making hard cash while doing the right thing. It can actually provide cost efficiencies and offer competitive advantage and brand value. I really like very much a quote by Victor Hugo, who said that there is nothing more powerful as an idea whose time has come. I find this most appropriate at this instance. And with that, I would like to introduce our panel members. We have the honor today to have with us the first Minister of Tourism in Cyprus. And I have to give you some important background. Tourism accounts for over 15% of our GDP. However, up until now, it was part and it was handled within the auspices of Ministry of Commerce, and just in January 2019, a dedicated Ministry of Tourism has been established to give tourism in a leisure destination the attention it merits. And Mr. Perdios is called upon to lead the transformation of this important sector of the economy into the next era. Our second panelist is Mr. Lazaros Charalambous, the commercial manager for DP World in Limassol, the operator of the multi-purpose and cruise ship terminal in Limassol. Lazaros has 10 years of shipping experience, and in his current role, He's involved with the cruise liners, of course, on various sustainability matters, but also with local communities and stakeholders, amongst other things, of course. Mr. Andrea Guerrero comes from the beautiful Venice, our third panelist, and he's the head of commercial and marketing non-aviation at SBA SPA in Venice. Andrea has a multi-industry experience in sales and marketing, and in his current position, has visibility to a wide spectrum of business practices related to sustainability. And finally, Mr. Pagis Papadimitriou is the manager of corporate quality at Athens International Airport, and he's an experienced integrator of management systems and a passionate advocate for sustainability. He's vice chairman of the board of CSR Hellas and the chairman of Corporate Responsibility Committee at the American Hellenic Chamber of Commerce. I will first call Mr. Perdios on stage for his opening remarks. Thank you. Mr.
Hi, everybody. First of all, I'd like to say how impressed I am by a few things that I saw the last few days. The quality of the events, certainly last night and the night before. The caliber of the participants, you. I'm very proud that our country has been able and has been allowed to welcome professionals like yourselves. I find it very refreshing and fantastic that many of you have never actually been to Cyprus before, and that this event gave you the opportunity. So thanks a lot for visiting our country. It's important to us. And before beginning, I also want to congratulate our own airport. You know, you make us proud. Panagiotis, Eleni, Maria, and everybody else associated with your team. You know, the fact that you're now carbon neutral bodes very well for today's discussion, and also the HR award that you received last night. Honestly, to me at least, to us as a Deputy Ministry of Tourism, it's everything we want to see from our tourism sector, hospitality. And a lot of people that I met over the last couple of days, their first comment was this. They did not say, first of all, about the food or the Kurion or the nice things they saw. They spoke about the hospitality of our people. So it's really important what you're doing. Thank you very much. You make us very, very proud. Right. Well, sustainability, what a big issue, huh? You know, I have to be honest and speak a little bit from the heart. Sometimes it makes me a little bit sad to discuss this subject because it is as if people tend to forget that sustainability has three pillars. Sustainability is not just the environment. Sustainability also has a societal aspect and also an economic. And the reason why I said it makes me sad sometimes is because people like us, and especially like you, the aviation industry, I feel that you come under unfair criticism by many because of carbon emissions, let's say. And people tend to forget the other two parts of sustainability, the other two pillars to which you've helped so much, and that's society and economics as well. I'll give you an example. We are in Cyprus, an island. What would this island be without aviation? What is Africa going to be in the next 50 years if 2 billion people cannot benefit from aviation, from travel, from tourism? So I'm very glad that we are having the discussion on sustainability. I think it's really the moment to be discussing this. And at the same time, I do want to point out that we have three pillars, not just one. So, following on from that, I just want to reassure you, Panagiotis, Eleni, Maria, and everybody else here, that we will not ban flying to Cyprus. Officially, it will continue. because it's very important to the sustainability of our destination. But when thinking about the concept of sustainability and all these three pillars, I think there is one common denominator that can help us feed all three. And that common denominator is diversification. Diversification in four key ways. Demographics, so the source markets. Demographics as a target segment. Nationalities, i.e. source markets. Regions which we service. And of course the special products that we can have in order to make our product more sustainable. So these are the things I will be focusing on during my introduction here. I will not be talking so much about the technical side. I feel it's very, very important. Things like what the airports are doing to go carbon neutral, net zero, like I heard you say yesterday. They're very important. But I think widely, a very important discussion going forward over the next few years is going to be this diversification. Now, before I go into the specifics of what we as a country are doing on these four key parts, I want to talk a little bit about Cyprus, where we are now, where we were, and how the future is going to be for us in terms of sustainability. So, Cyprus now is at 4 million tourism arrivals. I'm not talking about passengers, that's around 11 million, I think, but let's focus on tourism. 4 million arrivals. We were at 2 million 10 years ago. So does that make me happy? Sure. It delights me. But when you look at that number a bit further, I think there's a lot of work that needs to be done. And I say this how? Only 25% of these 4 million arrivals are in winter, from November until April. Most of these arrivals, they come to our beach resorts. So, looking forward, we've set ourselves the target of 5 million arrivals until 2030 on two conditions: that 40% of these arrivals are going to be in the winter months, and that this increase of 1 million arrivals will hopefully happen in a way that will develop all the regions of our island. So our purpose as a Ministry of Tourism is to, yes, develop tourism further, expand its contribution to our economy. Maria mentioned 15%. Hopefully we can make that 20, 25. But in a way that it will also benefit our local communities. And I think all of us here have a responsibility towards that. And the final part of my introduction will focus on this, on how we view this going forward in practice. So, some concrete actions now. I spoke before about diversification in demographics. I mean, when you read the statistics, there's 50% of global consumption that will come from people aged 50 and over the next decade. I think we have a responsibility in this country to look at that. Traditionally, we have focused on families with kids. Yes, that's why most of our customers, they are here in the summer. Package holidays, beach holidays. So by focusing on different demographics like that, you are then able to offer different products. Integrated wellness, for example. Active aging, active experiences in the mountainous regions of Cyprus. The second thing I mentioned before was nationalities. And again, as a Ministry of Tourism, we've gone further in depth and looked at the location of Cyprus in the world. And yeah, we are the only country in the world which is 1 hour's flight from 3 continents. So why then, as a country, have we been so dependent on 2 main markets, the Russian and the UK market? Again, this comes from the fact that we focused on family holidays over the past decade. So our focus, again, over the next decade, is these regions that are very close to us and to which we are very, very connected. And we are going to be taking active steps to promote our country for short breaks to these destinations. This helps us change or adapt our product to new nationalities, and that gives us a lower risk factor and greater diversity once again. When it comes to regions, as I said before, we really want to make sure that all the regions of Cyprus will benefit from tourism. What does this mean practically, especially for our collaborators, Hermes? In this country, we have 2 airports, not just 1. So in our view, we need to work actively to promote both airports as a destination for flights. And from there, we can start dispersing experiences across the whole island. Another thing we want to do, maybe not with aviation, but through another form of transport, cruising. Traditionally, cruising has been about getting customers to a port and then leaving them alone to do some shopping in the local port. Well, in this country, we are so small that every significant point of interest is not longer than an hour away from the port of Limassol. So the Deputy Ministry of Tourism is now taking an active role on creating such packages, such excursions, so that people arriving to Cyprus in our ports, they will be able to have 1 hour, 2-hour drives, visits to other areas of the island. So this is the way that we want to develop other regions. Just because we have 1 port doesn't mean that only Limassol should benefit. The other regions should benefit too. And finally, with regards to products, you cannot talk about sustainability when your main product is only sun and sea holidays. Yes, it's important for us. We will keep paying focused attention to it as we have done, but it's now time to develop different products. And an example is our recent launch of Cyprus Breakfast. This is a concept that most hotels on the island have embraced, and it gives us the opportunity to link tourism with the agro sector. It gives us the opportunity to promote Cypriot products within the hotels. And you have tasted these products over the last couple of days. You have seen how delicious they are. So now it's our responsibility as a tourism sector to promote this. And we want to combine this now with none other than our friends Airbnb. We have legalized Airbnb because we feel it's the best way and the fastest way for us to develop those regions that are further away from the beach resorts. So hopefully we can combine Airbnb and the agro sector to develop other regions of our island. I don't want to say much more. I think we're going to mention a lot of things during the panel, but from our side, this was the introduction. This is our vision for the future. Once again, I want to thank you for being here, and I am at your disposal for any questions during the panel. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Minister, and you certainly hinted on a couple of things that will come up in the discussion. So I'll start first with Bagis, and I'll ask this. Do you think nowadays do we have the luxury to treat sustainability as a matter of goodwill, as an option, rather than as an integral part of good business?
Okay. Good morning, and thank you for being here. We have a saying at Athens Airport. We say good business is good for business, in the sense that if you are consistently prudent and responsive and responsible, this will eventually pay off. It will show up in your performance, it will show up in your ratings, and it would ultimately affect your bottom line. But we are beyond that stage. As we've been hearing the past couple of days, there is an urgency of matters surrounding sustainability. There is a strong stakeholder interest different stakeholders, whether it is our passengers or our consumers in general, whether it is investors, like we heard in the previous panel. There is a strong interest that drives the need for sustainability. So there is a need now for sustainability. There is, first of all, a need for a balanced business model. There is a need to, like the Minister mentioned before, you need to balance among the three pillars of sustainability: the economic, the social, the environmental, or in other words, the people, planet, profit, the three Ps. I mean, you can put the three Ps in any order, but all of them, they need to be there. So you need to have a balanced approach. And it's this balanced approach, and I have to say that it was very well served by the work that was done on the sustainability strategy presented by Michael Kirklow yesterday, and it approaches, this balanced approach is what needs to be a starting point for companies. And this balanced approach touches exactly on the issue that there are very critical subjects that we have to deal with, and of course the spotlight is on climate change and initiatives that we have to take, or we're taking, like the net zero. But there are other subjects that are of major concern. Human rights, for instance. We heard the investor panel making a particular note on human rights. There is the effect of our service quality to society in general. It is our employees and the experience they get. And then it's the global, it's the effect that we have, for instance, on the economy. Through the employment and the improving the conditions for employability of people. And there is sustainable tourism. Sustainable tourism is a very important aspect of the economy, especially in countries like Cyprus, like Greece, where the tourism is a major engine, financial engine. So we all need to, every company, regardless of the sector, they need to grasp sustainability not as an option, as a goodwill, but rather as good entrepreneurship. And taking the path from a balanced approach over the three pillars to materiality, because we cannot solve all the problems in the world. We have to pick the problems that are most important for our own business and for our stakeholders. And then managing our impact, measuring and trying the best that we can in order to improve conditions where we can, or mitigate adverse effects where we can. So by doing all this, you end up with a societal purpose, which is necessary for companies nowadays. You need to have a societal purpose in order to connect your business with the needs of the society that is hosting you, with the needs of the planet that is hosting you. And a purpose is a good thing in life and in business.
Sure, thank you. Well, it seems to me that sustainability can be an umbrella that would provide solutions, or a platform for finding solutions on a lot of matters. And what do you think, Andrea?
Yeah, I mean, everybody should agree about sustainability. Now, in particular, our future clients, the millennials, are very sensitive about it. But we, as a concessionaire, we think that we could also the best actors to promote sustainability, and also to help on this cooperate with politics, because we are long-term people. Yesterday is something that was said from some panels. We have a long-term view. So this is very coherent with sustainability. And on this we could help politics, because sometimes this long-term view is not on the table of the short-term view of some side of politics, not all, of course. We have seen that there is also profitability in addressing sustainable business. And for instance, yesterday, with the net zero option, we have seen that there is a lot of convergence on this theme. We think that also we contribute as airports in the need of mobility that is inside the human being. And another thing that I just catch yesterday in yesterday panel is that mobility is peace. And in this moment, I think that we should think a lot about this. We have seen that, for instance, all the benefits from European Union. If I think when I was younger, there was border, and I mean, Italy is historically in the middle of the Mediterranean area, and so for us, also for our economy, it's much, much better to have the possibility to move from a country to another country. So I think that we, as the Airport Association, are one of the best, probably, actors, operators that could sustain the concept of sustainability because it is in our blood.
Thank you, thank you. So are you...
Yeah, if I can add on Andreas, first of all, thank you for having me. We're a different medium, we're of the sea, but we're still under the same industry of transporting people.
Part of the value chain.
And part of the value chain, exactly. But I agree with Andreas that sustainability is not a choice anymore, it's a must, because our customers and every traveler now is making a conscious choice to take a medium that will be helpful to the environment or less harmful to the environment. They choose a destination that is the socioeconomic factors of that destination it is not affected by them when there is this over-tourism. So it's not a matter of good practice, it's a must good practice to have sustainability in all the three pillars, as mentioned earlier.
And I would like to add, it's very important what Andrea said before about the millennials. I mean, it is a large group that is very sensitive about the issues that we're discussing here. They appear to have a conviction that companies should work to improve society. And this conviction, it drives their decisions as consumers, as employees, and it will probably drive their decisions when they become investors. So it is very important that the needs of that very active group of people need to be considered in our planning.
Sure, thank you. And actually, your comment sort of skipped a few questions, and I will ask the question now. Do you all think that we have a responsibility as whether we are as part of the value chain to educate passengers, to educate visitors on matters of sustainability? And how do you see this, bringing value and coming to reality? Maybe, Minister, you'd like
Yeah, I think that we do. And actually, I want to talk about the generation which is even younger than what the gentleman mentioned. Generation Z. When you see Greta, she's 16 years old. And she's taken a year off school now to tour the world by boat and lobby about sustainability and especially flights. None of us knows where that is going to lead. Maybe it won't come out too much, but maybe it will come out to a lot. So, yes, I think something that we all need to do, and we need to do maybe better, is exactly what you said, Maria, to educate the customer proactively about what we're doing in terms of sustainability and pushing out the benefits of our sector, not just not just by saying, yes, we are reducing carbon emissions and this and that, but also what is going to happen if our sector did not exist? And sometimes the human brain works in opposite ways like that. So I feel that certainly you are right, and we do need to do a better job of educating.
Do you guys think we can turn people into preachers of whatever our strategy, whatever our narrative will be? And how can we do that? How can we work with the cruise liners and the big cruise ship?
Definitely, we can by promoting on the different aspects of the sustainability, and you can see the benefits either to the local society or the environment, which is it's the main focus, but there is more than the environment. But it definitely creates that sense of people now that they become part of something greater, and they can become the preachers of that medium. I think we can definitely turn passengers, either being cruise or flight, into the preachers of carrying these over, of seeing a company to doing good for the local community, either by providing local products in their shops, for example, therefore helping the local farmers stay in business, and by advertising that, and also giving the passengers a way to taste something local, and which is again another big trend now in tourism, to taste something local that maybe they don't have a chance to do it. So that will create that medium that they will carry over, and be also be part of that movement.
Word of mouth, basically.
Word of mouth, exactly.
Yeah. If I can add something and to merge what the two gentlemen said right now, I think that we as an association, we should invest a lot in communication/education, because we are doing a lot of things, but probably it is worth to communicate more and just to give a concrete example of the benefits that we are giving to all the community and the local community. Because again, in this moment, there is a strong sense of local community. And we are a driver of economic benefits. And yes, we don't know what and where this fly shame is getting. But then we need to act proactively. And since we have a lot of concrete benefits, we are giving a lot of concrete benefits, we should talk the right language, because now we have the millennials, the Z generation, they are using other unstructured way to communicate. So probably the social network are already old. So we should get in touch to all the right trends, just to say that, hey, we are part of the solution, not the problem.
And just picking up on Andreas, the language, we have the language. I mean, we have the global language for sustainability, which is the SDGs, the Sustainable Development Goals. And it's probably one of the best tools that we have to communicate what we do as companies, as airport communities, versus the big picture, versus the global priorities. In the airport, we've started communicating through brochures of what the SDGs are and what are the material SDGs for our operation. But there is a lot that can be done at the airport level, at ACI level, because it is the global accepted language. I mean, when you look at SDGs in the beginning, they appear like a utopia, like what somebody would say at a Miss America pageant. I want world peace, zero hunger, and zero poverty. But when you start working with these things and you realize that there's an actual path that companies, governments, and civil society, they can follow in order to address those issues. And it's a global language that everybody understands.
And Minister, do you think that government states should take a more active role, let's say, to transcend these messages and initiate some collective effort to communicate what the airports, what the hoteliers, what the industry is doing, and how would you do that?
Well, I think my answer is going to surprise you a little bit. I actually don't feel that communication is the strong point of the government, any government. I don't see many people disagreeing, So actually, Maria, I think over the last couple of days, I've realized how big ACI is and what a tight community you are in many ways. And I think there's a lot of very important, very educated, very specialized people within your community. You represent a huge proportion of global traffic. And I think it's time for maybe even a global campaign on social media talking about all the benefits, because the easiest thing in this day and age is to go on social media and start a shaming campaign of whatever. Now it's flying. In 10 days it's going to be something else. Last year it was something different. So somehow we need to find a way to take advantage, if I may use that, of social media, of how quickly things move on the internet, and get people who benefit from travel and from tourism, especially travel, to be a part of this campaign. And I'm not just talking about the sustainable practices of businesses. I'm talking about all of us. Imagine if somebody came to you and now they said, you know what? You will not fly anymore. Okay, well, that's the end of our life. Let's just all go home and finish. Nobody wants that. So I think now it's time, and the timing is ripe for a movement. Whether that should come from a government, I don't think it's the easiest thing, but certainly we can support. But the original spark needs to come from companies and individuals like yourselves, people I see here, because you have the fire in you.
Interesting. Still to know who will be, the maestro in the orchestra. We definitely need a maestro.
Okay, certainly from our side, we need, I agree with the maestro discussion. On the communication side of the maestro business, I am honest in saying that, the governments are not well known for their communication techniques. Certainly, on the policy side and what other things we can do together, it's obvious that in open governments like ours, for example, we do need to be a maestro. And it's a good opportunity to mention everybody here that our ministry is 6 months old. So we are a young ministry, yeah. But one of the first things we did was to create a tourism strategy committee. And this means that, yes, the government presides over this committee, but 90% of the individuals, let's say, or the associations that are present in this committee, they come from the private sector. So that there is an exchange of ideas between the government and the private sector, and so that there is also accountability. From both sides. The easiest thing is always to say, it's your fault. I'm going to say it's your fault. You're going to say it's my fault. So I'm really happy that our country has taken this step, because now nobody's going to say it's your fault. It's our fault, or it's our opportunity. And, you know, you are a member of that committee, and you see in practice that we've started delegating tasks. I will give an example. We spoke before about diversification of flights, of nationalities, of demographics. And, you know, Maria promised to the sustainability committee, sorry, to the strategy committee, that when ACI is done and all this heavy work is finished, she is going to send a link or an Excel sheet to the whole private sector of Cyprus, informing them of the flights from every country that come to both airports in Cyprus. And I say this not to make her feel bad, but to show how this committee that we've set up is going to be working. We found out from this committee that there was this problem, and we've taken this joint decision to help. So this is how I see the issue of sustainability as well.
Yeah, and I think it's important that this committee has the flexibility to address a lot of things, both high level and, you know, smaller things, and address. So I'm going to move straight into another matter. I see the questions that are being posted, and I think they're touching upon this over-tourism discussion. And it's true that a lot of destinations are being hit by the so-called over-tourism. And, you know, Venice, once known as La Serenissima, is one of the, I would say, most serious victims of this. So a lot of things are happening, but Andrea, you being a local and being, you know, cognizant of both sides, what do you say?
By the way, I've seen that is an anonymous question, so should I be worried about this question? But I'm not joking. Over tourism, if you digit too many tourists in Google, you know what? The first 5 pictures are about Venice. So should be relevant, because if it is in the first page of Google, is reality, right? And we are helping the municipality in addressing this point. So also getting to the second question that I've seen, if a destination, airport, airlines are collaborating, at least we are trying to do. So there is no a magic recipe, because it is quite a hard issue to address, because you must find a balance between touristic interests that are a driver of local wealth and the quality of life of the destination. So just to give you a context, consider that every year in Venice, the ancient city, we have 20 million tourists. And this is an estimate, by the way. That means that on peak days, we have 140,000 tourists. And they are concentrated in 2 to 3 spots. The most famous is St. Mark's Square. Today, Venice, ancient city, has less than 50,000 inhabitants. That means that on a peak day, you have 3 times the inhabitants of Venice as tourists. So this is, for sure, not sustainable. Things are changing. If you think that 15 days from now will be the 30th anniversary of the biggest Pink Floyd event that probably somebody of you remember, that was in St. Mark's Square, or I mean all around. Nobody knows now how many were the people gathering at that space, but probably it was 300,000. So things are changing. We are working again with municipality in 2 different levels, of course. at tactical levels and a strategic level. From a tactical point of view, in terms of having short-term results, for instance, we, in particular the municipality, is investing a lot in putting cameras. I think that now in Venice there are more than 500 cameras that now register and control all the flow of tourists. That is why, because we want to collect data. Having data, it will be possible to forecast, to anticipate the future flow of tourists. And in long-term view, one of the things that Venice wants is just to distribute in the city all the tourists that now are concentrated in 2 to 3 spots. And by the way, all the city is such marvelous that it is worth to spend time. But at the same time, it is also a matter of safety, because too many people concentrating in the same area, of course, are dangerous. So having this camera, having the possibility to manage the flow in the future through a unique control room could soften this kind of problem. Of course, then there is a need to control all the people that are in the city. So 200 officers are now recruited just to control, to monitor all the flow of passengers, and just to give also the sense of safety. That was another important point to stress. But again, what is important, and to make it sustainability, is to act on long-term solution. So one of these is an education and communication campaign with a lot of famous testimonials. By the way, some famous American actors spend many weeks in their private lives in Venice, in particular George Clooney. George Clooney has married in Venice, and Clint Eastwood, for instance. So we have also 2 different characters. They have different ways to convince the audience, and they are promoting this campaign that is Enjoy, Respect, Venezia. And then at the end, also to come back to part of the question, there is this so-called access fee. So to make it sustainable, to manage all the flow of tourists, of course, you have also to act on some economic trigger. So by 2020, it will be implemented. It will be also a flexible fee, depending on the kind of the day. The average price will be €6, but going to €3 in the so-called green day, with less tourists in the place, up to €10. But this is not just to limit tourism. Okay, this is an important point. We don't want Venice to become a destination for the richest. It is just a way to manage and to make the tourists much more conscious. Because, believe me, there are some situations now that are not sustainable anymore in the city center, where people are just taking a bus, going to the city, spending 8 hours, going nowhere but San Mark Square, not even entering one of the marvelous museums that are in the city. So not giving any resource to the city, but just giving cost. And then this is what will create a very dangerous situation for Venice, because then people that are born in Venice don't want to stay anymore. So there is another calculation. Now, if the city has less than 50,000 people, if it's going under 40,000 people, it will become a kind of ghost city because you don't have the greengrocer, you don't have the electrician. So this sounds awful. If you think that 500 years ago, people in Cyprus were speaking Venetian language. It was, I mean, in the 15th century was a Venetian dominion. So, in a nutshell, I would say, yes, we need to go to an access fee. And there are other cities that are thinking about it. This is not to limit, but is to manage and to make the tourist conscious about that.
Do you think, though, are you expanding the visit, the area, let's say the touristic area, outside the limits of the very famous area? Do you think that's...
This is another good question. What we are doing also as an airport in collaboration with the airlines, in collaboration with municipality, is also to communicate that within our region and from a short distance from the historic city of Venice, there are many destinations that are worth to visit it. So, apart from the 2 or 3 spots within the city, and then we are trying to enlarge to other spots within the historic city, but also there are many destinations that are 20 kilometers from Venice. There are also the seaside. By the way, Venice region itself is the most touristic destination in Italy. We invite you for the Winter Olympics 2026 because Italy was awarded, and in the ticket between Milan and Cortina, Cortina is a well-known Dolomite sites, and the nearest airport are the airport managed by our companies that are, apart from Venice, Treviso and Verona. So in this communication concept, as large as a concept, we should also give the possibility to visit other destinations next to the crowded destination, just to soften this issue. And this helps a lot.
Actually, Andrea, something that I came across recently, and we will be exploring it too. I don't know, maybe it's a decent idea for yourselves. Jordan. In Jordan, I'm actually flying there next week to take this a bit further. They have created the Jordan Pass. This is like a ticket, but what is nice about that is that this Jordan Pass, it gives access to 40 or 50 sites within Jordan. And I think psychologically, the visitor, when they know that, by buying a package like this, they have free access to these points of interest, I think psychologically you then make the effort to actually go, rather than if you had to look at everything individually and pay separately, etc. So it's a very good idea, and we will be looking into it further as an island. And if in the future it's something that interests you, by all means, let's stay in touch, and I'll keep you informed about that.
Sure.
I would like to ask Lazaros, because cruising also has been accused about creating over-tourism. And first of all, what is your experience, and do you think also the operator of a cruise terminal, a cruise port, can influence this?
Well, definitely the accusation is there, good or bad. We, as cruise, is been definitely evolving. As mentioned earlier, There was 1.4 billion tourism around the world in 2018. Out of that, only 30 million were cruise. So it's a very small number compared to the overall. But in certain sites, it does affect and becomes the over-tourism. Thank God we don't have that problem in Cyprus. That we can make that clear.
We are still actually at zero, my friend.
We still actually can accept a lot more, so we haven't come to that point. But as operators, and always in communication and collaboration with authorities and with, for example, CLIA, which is another organization similar to you, that there is discussions and agreements with the local authorities and the port operators how to limit access to these sites, to these overcrowded sites. For a very good and recent example has been Dubrovnik, where if I just have here in my notes, it was in 2017 1.6 million tourists. And out of that, 0.7, 43% were cruise. That really affected Dubrovnik. And through the discussions with CLIA, which is the Cruise Line Association, the local authorities and the port, they've set a limit. So many cruise ships per day, and then also they've tried to encourage the cruise ships to arrive in the off-peak days or the off-peak season. So depending on when the peak is and avoid the crowds. And that is definitely what the operators we can do. We can encourage the cruise lines don't arrive on the weekend, because in the weekend there is a lot more happening. Arrive on a weekday where that can help you avoid the big crowds. You can visit the museums, you can visit the sites with much less crowds. There is quite a lot that operators can do.
Thank you. Thanks. Well, Minister, you've been discussing, you've been mentioning earlier diversification, and I wanted to ask you, do you think a sustainability path can actually offer a competitive advantage? Can it offer, some brand value to a destination like Cyprus?
That's a great question. Not only brand value, but I also feel that it can impact positively the ROI of an investment. Because in the next decade, if places suffer from over-tourism, investments will not arrive, or they will leave. The next consideration of investors will be overcrowding or over-tourism. When as an investor, you're going into a destination or a location, ready to invest 20, 30, 40, 100 million euros, and you feel that your asset within that destination is going to suffer from the negative publicity of over-tourism, I think you will change your mind. So not only can this be a competitive advantage to countries, governments, but also to businesses. So certainly, I agree with your question and the general consensus here that over-tourism and how we spread business and diversify should be a key consideration, not just for the government, but also for the private sector.
Thank you.
I would just like to add that the whole business of sustainable tourism is about gaining competitive advantage. It is the measures that you take that can change the the form of tourism. For instance, the connection of tourism businesses with non-tourism businesses, say hotels with farmers through contract farming for their produce used inside the hotel. This is a very important aspect in both ends, from the side of the tourist business and from the side of the agriculture. It creates a competitive advantage to look at nature. Preserving the natural environment, it can help the environment, the good condition of the environment, to be an element of attractiveness for the destination, and even to help, for instance, extend the tourist season through other forms of tourism, like wellness or trekking tourism. This is an issue particular for countries like Greece or Cyprus, that the tourist season is supposed to be in the summertime. But if you really look at the environment as an attraction for tourism, you can expand, gain growth, and at the same time disperse traffic over a longer period of time, which will help.
I want to add something there. You know, at the end of the day, when countries, governments, companies, everybody together manage to limit overcrowding and over-tourism, they achieve two key things. One, they make sure that the people, their people, who live there will still want to welcome people. And that is the first prerequisite of tourism. If your people don't want to welcome people, you are finished. And the second thing that this achieves, and it's related to a question I saw on the screen before. The question was, how can we ensure that tourists also behave sustainably? I think overcrowding and in general environments where there are too many people, they bring about the worst behaviors in people. You know, huge festivals where there's 200, 300, 400,000 people, it's so easy to hide your behavior. Or huge boulevards where there's just so many people rammed, or even beaches, etc. The more the people, the easier you can hide. So through this concept of dispersion and diversification and spreading out of businesses and concepts, etc., it will naturally, I feel, maintain a respectable behavior from all. And let's take the example of this hotel. You know, it's a diversified product. You're not going to go around and destroy everything you see. So I think the two are related.
Thank you. Well, we have reached actually the end of our session. I don't know if there are any questions from the audience. Otherwise, I would like to thank you very much.
Yes.
There is, yes, please. We need a...
This is a question from Hermes, complaint towards the government.
It's not a complaint, but I think it's
I know,
important, Minister, to answer one question that it was left unanswered. How the developments in Cyprus, the political developments, may affect the sustainability of tourism in Cyprus, which is very important, I think, to be answered.
Yeah, it's a very good question. My view is that, you know, Cyprus has been politically stable over the last decades, despite the fact that our island is divided. I think we all see on a daily basis living here that we are very stable. It's an environment of peace. And I am also going to say something that might sound surprising to some people here. Actually, I feel that stability in Cyprus will only increase as the years go by, because I see, and I see it personally and physically through our interaction with other governments, that, you know, the recent developments around energy in the Eastern Mediterranean, they have created an aura of excellent relationships with our surrounding countries. And it's a great opportunity for me to say that as a ministry now, we are collaborating closely with our neighbors, Greece, Israel, Lebanon, Jordan, and Egypt, to create joint tourism packages. So we are going out, researching what things we have in common with these countries, so that then we can create themed packages to attract people to the wider area in a way that they can visit not one, but two, maybe even three countries. So in general, I feel very confident about the environment here.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. Thank
Thanks a
you
lot.
all. Thank you for your attention. And I think that concludes.
Thank you very much, Maria, and to our four distinguished panelists for a very lively and informative conversation on sustainable tourism. Thank you very much. May I release you from the stage with a couple of more, yes, a couple of more items, because we are rapidly coming to the end of the Congress. But we do have a final item, a very special occasion, the special handover to the next destination for this annual Congress and Assembly, which is Geneva Airport, that will be hosting the 2020 ACI Europe Assembly. And since we're living in an era where pictures tell a more powerful story than words, let me actually invite on stage André Schneider, CEO of Geneva Airport, and Eleni Kalogeru, CEO of Hermes Airport, so that we can capture the historic moment of the official handover through a handshake from the one airport to the next. So please join me on stage. So there will be an official photograph, and I think the handshake will actually be the event that will actually conclude the transfer. Can you have a microphone? Thanks.
But I will give some more explanations about that for everyone.
Yes.
Because it has some very interesting facts.
So, Andre, I understand you have a few words to say.
Okay, before trying to convince you that we can do something not as good as here, but at least worthwhile the trip to Geneva, I want to give you some further explanations of what I just have handed over to Eleni. But first of all, I wanted to say again, dear Eleni, Michael, Jost, and Olivier, first of all, thank you to all of you to actually allow us to organize next year's annual assembly and congress. Dear colleagues and friends, so as I said, what we will also be for us it will be a very important moment next year because we will celebrate 100 years of Geneva Airport. So you can imagine we have actually been living with the history of aviation and also with the history of multilateralism, given that Geneva is an important place for that. And so we're going through our archives, and as every really hard-working organization, archives were a huge pile of things where no one actually knew what was in there. But by working through them, we actually found our oldest airport regulation established in 1937. Now this in itself might be more or less interesting. But I want to just point out two elements which are very important. One was that at this time already, we had opening hours and we did have a night ban. Because the opening hours were from 7 to 20:00 in the summer season, and there was a specific mention that on the New Year's Day, the airport was closed. But we were still living in a little bit more adaptive world, because there was a phone number provided for the concierge of the airport, where you actually could call to actually get a special permission outside of working hours to come and land. Now, in 37, we did not yet have a concrete runway, so this was a grass runway. And we're Swiss, we have not much space, and we try to use everything. So actually, this runway was also used to graze sheeps. Now, there is a special provision, and actually on the front side is in French, I'm sorry. The back side actually has an English translation. Actually, there is a special provision that there is a special siren which goes off, which actually indicates to the ward of the sheeps when he has to actually get the sheeps off the runway so someone can land. But I want to just assure you, when you will come next year to Geneva, which we naturally all hope, we are now certified by EASA, and you will probably not find a sheep on the runway. No promises made, but we work hard on that one. So again, thank you very much, having designated the airport of Geneva as the next host of the ACI Europe General Assembly in 2020. We will be welcoming you from the 16th to 18th of June in Geneva, which is actually the largest airport of the French-speaking part of Switzerland. By the way, to be absolutely transparent, we're also the only airport of the French-speaking part of Switzerland. The last 3 days were extremely interesting, and the numerous discussions and exchanges has shown clearly that we are ready to take the lead, to launch new concrete initiatives for many different things, but especially also to respond to the environment and sustainable development questions. I think there is a huge ambition here, and we have a chance now over the years to come to demonstrate how we actually transform this ambition into real actions. I think we all have learned to various degrees from where we come that we have to even more listen to the citizens and their concerns about all that. And as you can see, as you will see when you come, Geneva is in the middle of the city, and I will get back to that one. So we have actually even more neighbors than most of the other airports. So we are acutely aware of neighbors not being too happy being close to an airport. But I think it's great that we have here paved the future of the airport industry with a true commitment to be able to achieve the net zero carbon emission within an ambitious time horizon. In the sense, the resolution of ACI Europe shall become the reference for any further action, hoping that all our other friends from the air business will follow us on this trait. I have also to say, and with my deepest recognition and thanks, that my colleague Eleni and her team have set a really high overall standard for the conference, from the distinguished speakers to the incredible social moments and this wonderful island with the sea and the beaches, which, by the way, I had not much time to test, but nevertheless. So I have to tell you, I'm really sorry, that for the next conference, we will have to propose to change a bit the setting. I have to warn you that the 30th Assembly will not take place in a cozy and sunny place like here, which we experienced over the last 3 days. But I hope we have some good news. You will be able to get the view of the Lake of Geneva. It's nothing compared to the Mediterranean, I agree, with the Alps and the Mont Blanc behind from your hotel room, if you have the chance to be on the right side of it. And guess what? We just opened the first beach on the lake in the Eaux-Vives district. I agree, it's not like the sand, but at least if you really want to take a bath, and it could be actually hotter in Geneva at this time of the year than here. Currently we have 38 degrees in Geneva, which is, I'm actually very happy to be here, because I don't like the heat too much. So, as I mentioned, the year 2020 will be definitely a very special year for Geneva Airport, as we will celebrate our 100th year of what has been, at the beginning, a small, tiny airfield 4 kilometers away from the city. And if you want to have a little illustration, we do distribute you a little flyer. Now, that's less important, except the date. But here you have actually the original photograph of the region which was used for the first airport in 1920, which is really quite a small strip. Today, the airport is still there with the same but extended concrete runway. Sheeps, as I said, are a little bit further away, but the city has gotten really close. And so you will discover an airport which is totally enclosed by the city on one side and by the French border on the other side. And hence we are called a city airport, even if we don't talk too much about it. So we are very proud that you will join us for our huge birthday party, which will last actually the whole year. And therefore, we have also decided to show you Geneva from a different perspective that you might actually know. For sure, the lake and the jet d'eau are still there, as well as the old town, with its famous Protestant cathedral overhanging the private bank district. For sure, you will be able to taste cheese raclette and fondue, even in June. Takes a little bit more stomach to digest it, and it's certainly an experience you should try. But we want to show you also the other side of the lake, where we are actually living, which is the right side when you follow the direction of the main river called the Rhone. As you might know, Geneva is hosting several international organizations and non-governmental organizations, and since the beginning of the 20th century, because next year we will also celebrate 100 years of multilateralism, because the first session of the Union des Sociétés, Société des Nations, I will get it, I'm a little bit lost there, was actually in 1920 in Geneva. And I have to say, Geneva Airport has actually grown with the multilateral system in Geneva. And so we have actually a dedicated service for that, which we call Le Protocole, which is able to welcome and process separately head of states, ministers, ambassadors from all of our countries. The service is open 24 hours a day, because lucky news, for diplomatic air traffic, there is no night bans. 7 days, 7 through the year. As an example, last year we managed almost 5,000 foreign delegations arriving to Geneva or leaving Geneva for the various meetings held in the different organizations. And just a little example, some weeks ago we celebrated 100 years of the International Labour Organization, which actually attracted heads of state from all over the world. And then you can actually sometimes see planes which you almost never see, like interesting Russian planes. The conference will take place in the very famous Hotel Intercontinental, just across the United Nations headquarters. From your window, again, it depends on which side you will be, you may see the WHO, the ITU, the ILO, the WMO, and many others. And please, don't worry. You will get used to such abbreviations. We'll help you. But the Intercontinental Hotel is not just any hotel. It has welcomed throughout the years famous delegations from around the world and many important peace discussions. So you may remember in 1985 the summit between Reagan and Gorbachev, or even much more recently in 2015, even if the discussions were a little bit ill-fated at the end, the talks on the Iran nuclear deal. It was also there in a more glamorous environment where Omar Sharif liked to stay at the hotel. Now that speaks more to elderly people like me. At the hotel, whereas Sophia Loren has also had her habits there. During your stay at the hotel, you might definitely bump into a minister or a star. We also want to set the whole thing a little bit more according to what we are living every day, and so the welcome reception will take place in the current World Trade Organization headquarters, which is located near the lake. It is the first building to host an international organization right after the First World War, which at this time was the International Labour Bureau, today Labour Organization, which just celebrated its 100 years birthday. And there you will be on a terrace with an unprintable view of the lake and the Alps, which is just fantastic. The gala dinner, I will not say much, but you will see afterwards a little film which gives you some inklings where it will be, but we will keep silent around it so you have a little bit of a surprise, and you will, as you see, get further on more indications on it. The location of the airport has been agreed by the local government in 1919, actually in a wish to get the Society of Nations to Geneva. At this time, several places were foreseen, and as you will see later, we have a main square in the middle of the town, which has not been built, even now, which is called the Plein Palais, but which has actually buildings all around. And they did actually envisage this place to hold the airport. Now that would have been Hong Kong, old version, 360 degrees. So I think when my neighbors get a little bit upset about us, we say, you have to understand, it could have been 10 times worse. So, anyhow, and that would probably have created a real problem for our development. But it is clearly, it has become a clear vector of development for Geneva, the airport, and we are, even if sometimes a little bit disliked, an important part of Geneva. So, I think also it will be important next year to be able at this conference to continue to discuss about the main trends in our industry, and sustainable development will certainly be one of them. And we hope that during this conference we will also be able to contribute with some further developments to actually showing how our industry is bringing that together. So in short, before getting the film going, I'm really looking forward to have you in Geneva. It's a real pride for us. And you will also see that for us to celebrate 100 years of an airport is quite a moment also, which puts us among the 20 oldest airports in the world. And it also hopefully shows you that actually airports can be really sustainable because we're still at the same spot where we were 100 years ago. So I'm really looking forward to see you in Geneva, and thank you very much for your attention. Thank you very much, Andre. Indeed, you have created a lot of hype. Everybody's definitely looking forward in this room to come to Geneva next year. I think I even noticed a few people booking their airline tickets from now in the audience. So we are really at the very end of our Congress. I would like to take this opportunity just to say to share some of my personal reflections, having had the privilege of observing your deliberations. First, to the existential question, transform or die, I have to say I didn't pick up any suicidal tendencies, so there's a clear commitment by all stakeholders to transform, which is a great thing. And secondly, I want to echo what the minister said earlier. I mean, I'm personally also very impressed with the quality of your Congress, the quality of the professionals, the quality of the conversations you've had. I particularly liked the structure that you've had through the various perspectives. You had the airport's perspective and the airline's perspective and the investor's perspective, and we also had the sort of tourism perspective. But particularly in the cross-stakeholder perspective that we had yesterday afternoon, I felt that in spite of the sort of, the courage that you have to have points of view and sometimes opposing shares of view, it has been demonstrated in my mind there's a clear case for further collaboration and further alignment, especially around sort of the strategic actions and also the communication challenge, both on the sustainability issue but on the wider issues of the industry. So I hope that you will continue as a community to get aligned on that. So with that, a couple of administration points. At 2 o'clock,
Those of you who are flying out, there will be transport to Larnaca Airport from this resort, so make sure you get on that. And for those of you who have pre-registered to attend the afternoon's tour in the Larnaca Airport, again at 2 o'clock, here outside of the registration desk, people will be there to sort of help you leave for Larnaca Airport as well. Lunch will be again in the exhibition hall. And with that, let me declare the conclusion with a final well done to everybody involved. Have safe travels and enjoy your lunch.
I'm leaving on a jet plane. I don't know